Hi everyone, it's Paul Lange from Disciplined Trading Strategies with this week's Trade of the Week video. This is for the week ending 6/23 of 2024. This is going to be a little different in a few different ways. Every couple of months, every 3 months, I throw in a long-term position in here. I call everything I do trading, long-term trading, short-term trading, whatever you want to call it. This is a long-term position that was, I think, a very unique. I'm going to review that as the Trade of the Week this week, and it's going to be a little confusing. I'll tell you why in just a minute here. But you'll pick up a nice tip from it, I think. This was entered on May 9th of 2024. This trade lasted about 6 weeks. It just ended this week. That's why it's the trade of the week. It just closed out this week. This is on the market, the QQQ long. Strategy was based on a daily chart DTS sell setup failure and an entry on a 15-minute DTS sell setup failure. I'll show you those in a minute. Sounds a little confusing, I know. Management was just long-term. Reward to risk averaged out to be almost 8 to 1. The last part of the trade was almost 15 to 1. The big move, it averaged out over 3 exits to be 8 to 1. Before we get to the trade, as usual, what is for free members this week? Well, there's nothing for free members, unfortunately. We have 2 events this week. They're both for seminar program members, so no time for free members this week. But remember, you can always visit the free stuff page, and you can also get caught up on the DTS podcasts. Podcasts are under the more to do on the menu on the left, and free stuff is simply under free stuff. So here is the long-term position. Now, this is not a day trade. So this goes out in a letter to people who are subscribed to the long-term trader. They get an email like this, and they also get a text message telling them that, hey, you have an email, go look at it. So this is on the 9th. It was for the QQQ. You can see this is where it's going to get a little trickier. The trade is a market long on the QQQ, but I did this by going short the QQQ short. So a double short. There's 2 reasons to do that. The short for the QQQ, it's an ETF called the SQQQ, and when you go long the SQQQ, you're shorting the market. That's what it's designed for. However, you can short the SQQQ, and then you are long by virtue of the double negative. Now, first of all, the SQQQ is mathematically locked penny to penny to the QQQ. It's not a different entity. It's not similar. It's exactly the same thing to the penny, every stroke, every tick of the day. Number 2, why would you short the SQQQ instead of going long? Well, 2 reasons. Number 1, the SQQQ is like a $10 ETF, so you save a lot of equity. Now, the return, the number of hours doesn't change. 8-hour trade is an 8-hour trade. It doesn't matter what entity you used, but this used much less capital. And number 2, there's a apparently little known thing that the leveraged ETFs decay in value over time. So you really don't want to go long an ETF if you can avoid it. A leveraged ETF, you'd rather short it because as they decay in value, it helps you. So by shorting the SQQQ, you get a little bit of that time decay as well. Now, however, the reason I also phrase in terms of the QQQ is because if you are in an IRA doing this, you cannot short in an IRA. So you'd have to go long the QQQ or go long the TQQQ, which is the triple leveraged long. And then you'd have some leverage and you're long. So with all that being said, the trade originally was posted as a QQQ, so you could use the TQQQ, you could use the futures, you could do whatever you wanted to when the QQQ triggered. I used the SQQ short. The equivalent numbers came out to be 1070 by 1088. So there we go. Naturally, if you have questions about this, feel free to email me. A little complicated, but a really great tip. Think about how great it is if you can short, if you're not in an IRA, to short the $10 ETF rather than go long the expensive one. So here's the daily chart of the QQQ, and this is the last time I'm going to show the daily chart of the QQQ. I'm going to switch to the SQQQ to show you the trade I did, but remember, it's the same exact thing, mirror image. So the long, which most people think, this is the pullback on the weekly chart. There was a questionable pullback. I didn't want to go long here because the weekly chart was a little squeamish in that area, but we're also in crazy town, and the weekly chart didn't pull back. I was ready to go long. So when we had this rollover, I'm thinking, okay, very likely we might just keep going lower here, but we gap up and we take out this pivot, and that's where I want to look for my entry. I didn't want to chase it that far, but right in here we gap down this day, you can see, turned green, and this next day I got in on what amounted to be, you could call it a 60-minute breakout or a 15-minute sell setup failure, kind of a little bit of both. And you notice that was the moment in time because I ended up taking, well, you'll see it on the SQQQ, but I took a quick target on that big move up here, took another target, it looks like maybe we weren't going to follow through, and then got that last third for the huge run. So here it is in more detail. Now remember, this is now the mirror image. This is the SQQQ. I'm going to short this. So the same exact entry there was right there. This was the buy setup failure that got me interested. And right in here is where we had a little 15-minute, 60-minute chart failure to go higher, which got me short. You'll see that better here. And again, you can see that's the ultimate target now on the short. That was 15 hours to that last target. Here's a 60-minute chart. This is the entry time in here. This is the day where we had gapped down and rallied in the QQQ, which was a gap up and fell in the SQQQ. I wanted short. So it was that little pivot right there I wanted to go under. Now the morning, we kind of flew lower and tested it and then rallied. And then that's when I decided under that low right there, that was going to be the short. So that is kind of a 15-minute buy setup failure. Notice that that was the moment in time. This is a moment in time trade. You look back to where we fell eventually, how low we went, well, you can't see it on this chart. But you go back and look and you say, where was the birthplace of this move? Well, there was one up a little higher. This was the next one, right there, basically to the penny. Moment in time trade. Entry right under that little pivot. The targets you can't see on this chart because they come from the daily chart. The last target was a 6-week target. And by the way, right now, the long-term trader is a midterm long-term trader. Right now, I'm kind of just stuck in midterm. I'm not really going much longer than that because there's going to be limited upside potential. And then when you do get to shorting, we could have a year-long bear market, but you really don't get into that position where you're holding stuff for years, which I hope to be in sometime soon, back on the long side, maybe a year from now. The 15-minute chart here, just showing you a little better detail. This is what got me interested, this little 15-minute pivot when we took that out by a little bit and rallied, and then when we get under that area, that was the short, and that did it. That was the proof. We called it a secondary sign of weakness or secondary sign of strength in the QQQ that got me into this position. Daily chart of the SQQQ, this is being brought back to show the targets. So that was the entry point right in there. Target 1, I think, was a smart target. It was a fast money. It was a quick 3 hours approximately. We were still flirting with this prior area in here. Note that we did get that rally back. Now, the shame of it was I got taken out of target 2 right in there, just barely. Probably would have anyhow at some point because we did have this rally. But once I had 2 targets, now we let the daily chart pivot somewhere down in here. I'm sure, I don't know where I lowered the stop to here. And then boom, boom, boom. I set out a really pretty generous target based on the weekly chart. You can see, if you look at the QQQ weekly, you can kind of see where we rallied to. We just hit it by pennies. And so far, that is the low in the SQQQ, i.e. the high in the market as of 3 or 4 days later. This is where I usually show you a slide about the DTS trading room. This naturally came from the DTS Long Term Trader. If you're interested, you can go read about it. Go to the website. You can't click on anything here, but go to the website under subscription services. Go to the Long Term Trader. You can read all about it, see if it's something that fits right for you. And then naturally, if you want to sign up, you can sign up. Here's the information on the trading room if day trading is more your style. And for those of you who like the free events, there's other Trade of the Week videos on the free stuff page. Go visit those. That's the last one before this, GPS, which was a day trade. And prior educational events, recently posted the last one, which is the most popular strategy analyzed, one of my favorites. So check those out. Until next time, this is Paul for DTS. Good trading, everybody.